What's up, guys? I forgot to delete that anyway. Okay, what's up? So today I have a very special video for you all. Today I'm gonna go over the top 10 restricted Pokemon I think have the highest likelihood to win Worlds. That is like in 2 days. World starts in 2 days. No, 3 days. Yeah, 3 days. Anyways, details out of the way. First, before I go through these top 10, this top 10 list, I want to talk a little bit about my channel and the future of this channel. Just as a heads up, I'll probably be doing some more Unite content and just more Pokemon content in general. I have 2 massive projects that I'm working on that I'm really excited to share with you guys when they are ready. That's the real reason I haven't been posting as well as I said I would. That's my bad. But anyways, that out of the way. Moving forward, I should be getting a little more videos. I've got a few theory videos. Well, I've got 2 more theory videos for Legends of the CA that I just have to edit and get out to you guys. So you should be seeing those. Next month you'll probably be seeing a lot more of VGC content. What else am I missing here? Oh, I might, depending on the situation, depending from round 2, I might do a watch party for Worlds. If any of you guys are interested in that, I'll be streaming myself watching it, and in between matches we'll probably go over them and I'll do a bit of my own breakdown on what could have happened differently and what happened in general. So if that's something that interests you, be on the lookout for that. I'll probably make a video announcing that the day before if I am going to do it or not. So just be on the lookout for that. So if you aren't subscribed but want to see that, I'd suggest subscribing and turn on that notification bell so that way you don't miss that and you can be there for that. Anyways, yeah, that's the whole niche details that I have to go over. So now let's go over this top 10. So these are the top 10 restricteds I believe have the highest likelihood to win Worlds in order. So number 10 is Origin Form Palkia. This is number 10, so it's very unlikely for this thing to win Worlds, but there is a chance. It's got some ridiculous high stats, as you can see, with that 150 special attack, making this thing pretty good of a menace. It has decent speed and very high defenses, but it does have low HP, which makes it not great. Its abilities are kind of not great. Well, I guess you can pair it up with it. No, it's just realistically, pressure is probably what you're going to want to use, because you're not going to use a spread move that will hit you that will make this worth it. The only one that would make it worth it is technically Earthquake, but it's not like it would be super effective against it, so it's not like it would matter. Or Discharge, but the best Discharger is a restricted, so it really doesn't matter. Also, we have another reason I believe that is because it has some really good moves that it learns. Like it gets Aura Sphere, Blizzard, so you can throw this on a snow team if you really want. I would recommend it because there is 2 other options that are better for that I will go over soon. But it does get a lot of options like Draco Meteor, Chilling Water for like support. Like you don't have to have this thing be your powerhouse. It gets Fire Blast, Flamethrower. Those are 2 great moves, although I'd recommend Flamethrower over Fire Blast because of accuracy. But it also gets Hyper Voice, which could be really good. Ice Beam and Icy Wind might actually be really good. Power Gem is a solid move. Spatial Rend is always a fantastic Dragon-type move. Surf could be good, depending on your team. Terra Blast could be good, depending on what Terra type you're running and if that's really necessary. But Thunderbolt, both of those great moves, because this Thunder will allow this Palkia to be really a lot better in rain teams, especially since Kyogre is no longer the main rain setter in this format. It is now Pelipper, which makes this thing a good restricted to pick for your rain teams. Thunder Wave is always pretty good. That allows you to get some paralysis on, and I think those are like the main moves I want to go over. But anyways, it does have potential to be a physical attacker. Not a great physical attacker, but if you were to make it a physical attacker, you do have a lot of move options. Like Aqua Tail is amazing. Dragon Claw, Dual Wing Beat is pretty good. You got Earthquake. That's also a great physical move. Heavy Slam might actually be really good against those Flutter mains. Probably because I'm assuming, based on what this Pokemon looks like, I'm pretty sure it's pretty heavy. It's also got Liquidation, which is probably better than your Aqua Tail. So if you are running a physical Palkia, I'd recommend that. Outrage is a little bit of a sketchy move, but isn't a horrible decision. Rock Slide, great move. Stomping Tantrum is also great if you don't want to use Earthquake. Stone Edge could be also pretty solid, and Waterfall wouldn't be bad, but I would recommend Liquidation if you are going on the physical side, but I would recommend just Special. I would also probably just recommend Pressure, because it might actually help you stall. And the Terra type I would recommend, I'd probably go with Terra Fire. Terra Fire isn't a horrible option for this Pokemon. Anyways, let's move on to number 9, which is Kyurem Black. Kyurem Black is Dragon Ice type, so it's not a great typing on the defense side, but on the offensive side, it is pretty nasty. It's got some ridiculous stats with that 170 attack and 125 HP. It's got some pretty solid defenses and a decently okay speed, but also it has a very high special attack, so you can use this as a special attacker, more so than you could use Palkia as a physical attacker. Still, wouldn't recommend it. I would still recommend probably physical, because you've got things like Avalanche, Body Press. Body Press might, no, Body Press is not good. Dragon Claw, this also gets Dual Wing Beat, which could be pretty good. Facade, I guess, could be pretty good. Fusion Bolt is ridiculously powerful. Yeah, Fusion Bolt is pretty powerful with the 100 power, 100 accuracy. It's a pretty nasty electric type move. Especially since a lot of people are going to be preparing for Miraidon, which is a special electric type. So if you have a physical electric type move that can hit that hard, it's going to be crazy. That's also why I would suggest Terra Electric, so that way you can get Stab on that move, making this thing hit like a truck. Icicle Spear isn't a horrible option, because you can put Loaded Dice, allowing that to be a ridiculously powerful move. Also, Ice types are not bad in this meta right now, because a lot of people just can't really handle Ice type damage, because not many people are running their Steel types, Fire types, not many people are running those. So Ice type is really good right now. I'm not saying that this Pokemon will win Worlds, but it has a very strong, I feel like it might be above the next Pokemon in my opinion now that I'm looking at it. It's got some real good potential. It's also got Rock Slide, which is always a great spread move. It's everything is Terra Blast. Terra Blast might not be a horrible option for this Pokemon, depending on if you don't want to run Terra Electric. Zen Headbutt is okay, I guess. Yeah, back to its stats though. It's got some really good stat distribution. And yes, I would recommend Terra Electric if you're running Fusion Bolt. If you're not running Fusion Bolt, I would suggest Terra Water. Terra Water isn't a horrible defensive Terra type. Or you could go with Terra Ice and just let that Icicle Spear do ridiculous damage. Those are the things I would suggest. Moving on to number 8. Number 8 will be Dialga. I think I pronounced that weirdly. Origin form. Oh, also, I forgot to mention, back to Palkia real quick, Lustrous Orb makes it so its Dragon and Water-type moves have a 1.2 power boost, which means the Spatial Rends, your other, I can't think of the good Water-type moves that it has. Its best Water-type move is probably Hydro Pump, special-wise. So that's why I would suggest maybe like a Special Physical mix might be really good with this Pokemon, because you do have Liquidation, which is just a better Water-type move. And you can really take advantage of that 1.2 power boost. And then Dialga has the same thing, but that's Steel and Dragon, which makes this thing way better. I would suggest Telepathy, because you can put a Earthquaker, which is actually makes sense because you're Steel type, which means you are weak to it. I would suggest Terra Fairy, and I will explain a little bit, because your two main legendaries that you're going to be scared of, because this thing can easily handle your Calyrex Ice Riders, your Calyrex Shadow Riders. The Shadow Riders are a little scary, but I think you can live one move from it as long as it has no stat increase. Anyways, if you have Terra Fairy, it prevents Koraidon and Miraidon from actually doing anything to you. So it's just an overall a really good Terra type. Its stats are a lot better than Palkia's, giving that 100 HP, than that 120 defense and 120 special defense, making this thing actually pretty bulky. It's got a little bit of a lower speed, so you can, I guess, you could try throwing it on a Trick Room team, which wouldn't be bad since a lot of legendaries, like for instance Pure and Black, they have pretty low speeds. But then when you get to the more stronger Pokemon, which that's the next one I'll be talking about, just a reference, has like a lot of speed. This doesn't. So Trick Room isn't a horrible option here. You also have fantastic moves like Aura Sphere again, Blizzard on this Pokemon too. Wouldn't really suggest doing this on your Snow team, but could. You've got Draco Meteor, which I probably wouldn't suggest because there is a different reason. There's a reason for that. Earth Power is a solid move on this Pokemon. Flamethrower isn't bad. Flash Cannon is probably your best Steel type move. Ice Beam isn't horrible. Overheat actually might be a pretty crazy move for this Pokemon. Power Gem isn't bad. And Steel Beam isn't a horrible decision if you just kind of want to nuke the field if you're low HP and you're going to die anyways. Terra Blast with that Terra Fairy could be pretty good. Thunderbolt is always good. Thunder, if you're running Rain, is also a really solid option. And this also does learn Trick Room itself, so it can set that up itself by itself, so you don't need a Trick Room setter because this can be your Trick Room setter. Yeah, so this is a pretty solid Pokemon. That's why I think that's why I put it where it is, because it's solid, but there are just better options out there. So this was number 7. 10? No, this was number 8. So number 7, and number 6 are kind of tied. I'll explain. But right now, in number 7, I have Koraidon. Koraidon currently is our best Sun setter. Koraidon is best. Most of them are running Terra Fire. So if you want to be special, you could run Terra Water, making the other Koraidons. No, actually, I wouldn't suggest that. Never mind. Don't listen to me. Yeah, no, I would straight up suggest Terra Fire. Terra Fire is probably the best offensive and defensive Terra type on this Pokemon. Actually, no, Terra Fighting would be the best offensive. So if you're going for an offensive Terra type, I would suggest Terra Fighting, and if you're going for a defense, Terra Fire. It's got some pretty good stats distribution. It's got 100 HP, which is always pretty solid. 135 special, 135 attack, which means it can hit pretty hard. It's got 115 defense, which means it can take a hit. Its special attack is low, which is always a good thing for physical attackers. And it's got a pretty decent special defense and a pretty high speed, making this Pokemon overall a pretty strong competitor. It's got things like acrobatics that can be used. It's also got access to close combat if you don't want to go for Collision Course, but Collision Course is the better fighting type move. Crunch is a solid move against your Calyrexes. Dragon Claw might be your best Dragon type move if you want to run a Dragon type move, but I don't think this Pokemon necessarily needs to. Dragon Punch is always a good support move. Dual Wing Beat is always a good coverage move, which that will also allow you to really probably kill the other Rhydons. Then you have a ton of different fire type move options. I would suggest mostly Flame Charge and Flare Blitz, because your Flame Charge can increase your speed, which could be pretty solid, while Flare Blitz is just a ridiculously strong fire type move. Ice Fang is pretty good on this Pokemon. Not really, but it's decent. Iron Head is really solid on this Pokemon. Will allow you to deal with those fairy types. And Stomping Tantrum is also another good option. Temper Flare might actually be a really good choice for your fire type move. And it also gets Wild Charge, so it can deal with the water types that it can't really hit for super effective. So that's always a great option. Again, it can set up the sun, and its attack is boosted while in the sun, so it's pretty good, as well as its signature move, Collision Course, also I believe gets another additional boost, so Collision Course will hit like a truck, which is why you're probably all confused on why it's not higher on the list, and that is because number 6, what it's tied is White Kyurem. Like the other Kyurem, it has 170 special attack, 125 HP. Defense is low, but if you guys remember, Snow now increases defense by 50%. So realistically, this is more like 135 defense and 100 special defense with that 125 HP, which is really solid. It does have a very low speed. So that you're gonna have to probably run Tailwind or Trick Room to fix that. Probably suggest Tailwind in general. There is a lot of snow. Alolan Ninetales is actually looking pretty solid too for Worlds, so be on the lookout for that. As far as Terra types, you're probably gonna want to go with Terra Ice for that extra damage. And as far as defensive Terra types, I'd probably go with probably Water or Fire Terra would be your best options. Probably would choose Water because I think it's just a more defensive type in general. It's got Ancient Power, I guess. It's not really a great move, but it's a move. It's got Blizzard, which in Snow it would have 100% accuracy with that 110 power plus that special attack that it has. And if you have Terra Ice, that will probably kill most of your opponents pretty quickly. Draco Meteor is going to do a lot of damage too, and that does have a drawback though, so you do have to pay attention to that. Earth Power is always a solid move on special attackers. Flash Cannon could help you out in dealing with those fairy types. Freeze Dry will be actually really good to dealing with those water types that can kind of just sit in front of you and ignore you. Urshifu is not gonna like that, especially if you have Tailwind. They don't. You should outspeed it. Fusion Flare is kind of like Fusion Bolt, but it's a little bit better by having. Actually, I think it's about the same, but it does make it pretty good that there is no other good fire options, so it's probably the best fire type move in the game. Ice Beam wouldn't really recommend because you have Freeze Dry, which is just superior. Icy Wind is no horrible option for speed control. Then Psychic, not really great, but it is an option. Shadow Ball would be really good for those Calyrexes. Terra Blast again is always a good option, and if you run this on a different weather team, running Weather Ball might actually be pretty solid for two reasons. If they change your weather, you get a different move to use, and overall, I think it's just going to be pretty good. Anyways, yeah, I think that this does tie with Koraidon, because Koraidon does have better stat distribution, but this Pokemon has a lot more use cases. Moving on to number 5 is Calyrex Ice Rider. The reason I'm putting this in 5 is because it does need Trick Room in order to really be good, because it does have very low stats. It is a Psychic Ice type, which means it's not at all a defensive Pokemon, which means that you're going to have to run a defensive Terra type, either Water, or you could, I guess, you could also run, Terra Ghost wouldn't be a horrible option, but not a great option, so I would suggest Terra Water or Terra Grass. Terra Grass is another good option. It's got 165 attack, 100 HP, with that 150 defense and 130 special defense. It's got low speed and special attack, making this thing a pretty good Trick Room sweeper. It also has Unnerve and Chilling Neigh. Unnerve prevents your opponents from eating their berries, which a lot of people are using berries, especially Citrus and Lung are pretty used. And then Chilling Neigh increases your physical attack every time you take a kill. And then this Pokemon has a lot of great moves. Honestly, Body Press is an option. Close Combat is an amazing option. Crunch is also good because Crunch will allow you to deal with other Calyrex and other Calyrexes in general. Glacial Lance is your best Ice-type move with that 120 power, 100% accuracy, and it does hit both opponents, so it is really good. Heavy Slam is not a horrible option for those fairy types. High Horsepower is being seen a lot thanks to Miraidon. It can kill those Miraidons pretty good. Icicle Spear, I guess if you wanted if you wanted a single targeting Ice-type move, it's a good option if you are okay with running loaded dice. If not, Icicle Crash is the next best option for that same case scenario, just without a necessary item. Outrage, it's not a horrible decision, but also is at the same time. Seed Bomb could be pretty good in certain use cases. Throat Chop is probably better than Crunch in some cases, so if you want to use that over that. Trailblaze could be pretty good to increase speed, so I guess if you did try to run this in non-Trick Room, you could try. It does have the ability of setting up Trick Room by itself, just like Origin Form Dialogue. And then it has Zen Headbutt, which is its only physical Psychic type move, but honestly I would just ignore its Psychic type in general. But yeah, it's a pretty strong contender, but I just don't see it doing too well due to the fact that it needs Trick Room really to be good. Number 4 is Zamazenta Crowned. Zamazenta Crowned is a Fighting Steel type, which is really solid typing. It's got Dauntless Shield, which allows it to get a +1 in defense, which most people can't remove that +1 because most people don't get moves to lower defense. It's got a lot of Terra options. You could just go straight with the Terra Fighting, make it pure Steel. Those are both really good options. Water is also a great option, and Fire is also a great option. And I guess you could also Poison. Poison is another good, and Ghost. So this has a lot of different Terra options, which is another reason why I think it's good, because it has a lot of different Terra types you can take advantage It's got pretty low HP, but it does make up for that in having very high defenses, both being 140. 140 defense with that +1 is ridiculous. It does have a pretty decently high attack, so you can still use it as a normal physical attacker. It's got low special defense, which I mentioned is really good for physical attackers, but this, unlike Calyrex, does have high speed, which makes this probably a better option over it, which is why it's higher. It gets Behemoth Bash, which I guess is pretty good, but I think that it also gets Heavy Slam, which is probably a better option, because most of your fairy types are not going to be heavier than Zamazenta. Body Press is another amazing move, is actually the best move on this Pokemon, because it does go off the damage stat, the defense stat, which, if you remember, it has an ability that increases its defense by 1 just as soon as it enters the field, which means it's guaranteed to make this move a very nasty hitting thing. It's got 80 power and accuracy, so your opponents can't dodge it unless they're ghost type. It has Crunch, so it can hit the ghost types. Coaching isn't bad since it will be able to survive a lot of things, which means it can help its ally do a lot of damage as well. Like I said, it gets Heavy Slam, which is the recommended. I either recommend that or Behemoth Bash. If you're going to run I would recommend that because it will allow you to deal with those fairy types. Also, just having Steel type move on a Steel type is pretty good. But I would suggest probably Heavy Slam is probably better than Behemoth Bash, because your main fairy type you're going to run into is Fluttermane, and Fluttermane is definitely not heavy enough to survive a Heavy Slam from a Zamazenta. Iron defense is insane, especially with Body Press, because that means you can go from a +1 to a +3 with just 1. It has Play Rough and Psychic Feigns, I guess, if you really wanted to use those moves. They're not horrible. Quick Attack could have some pretty good use cases if you need filler move, I guess. Terra Blast could be good depending on which Terra type you have. And Wide Guard is probably one of the strongest moves to have, especially since a lot of the Pokemon in this meta have spread moves, which means this will protect that, which is great. It also has access to Wild Charge, which will allow it to hit water types, which its Steel typing does struggle with, so that is an option, but I wouldn't recommend since your Body Press can already kill it. But Trailblaze, I would say, is a pretty good move, because it will allow you to increase your speed, which is pretty high, but also not that high, so it would allow you to get pretty fast, so I would recommend that if you need it to be faster without Tailwind. Alright, number 3. Terrapagos. Terrapagos' picture's gone, so I'll put a replacement there for that. It runs only Terra Stellar because it only can. It has Terra Shift, which allows it to shift into its other forms. These stats are not the real stats, so just give me a second. I'm gonna find the real one. The one we're gonna worry about. I'm gonna actually add both of them. Look at them. So, this is your normal Terrapagos that you'll see most of the time. Terra Shield, as long as it has full HP, it makes any attack that comes into it not very effective, which is really good. That means you're guaranteed to survive an attack. I would recommend Clear Amulet, Covert Cloak on this thing, or for the best outcomes. There's a lot of moves on this Pokemon. Dazzle and Gleam, Dark Pulse, really good moves in this meta right now. Earth Power is also incredible. Energy Ball could see some use cases, same with Flamethrower. Actually, Flamethrower is really good if you're not running Earth Power. Flash Cannon is pretty good. Ice Beam is also pretty solid. Meteor Beam, if you don't care about what item you're running, Meteor Beam is actually a really busted move to have. And then Earth Gem is also a great rock type move if you need a rock type coverage. Scorching Sands is okay, I guess. It could be pretty good, but I would recommend Earth Power, honestly. It also gets Surf, which I guess in certain use cases could be pretty good. Terra Starstorm, you're going to guarantee you want this because this is its signature move, and even not Terra, it does a ton of damage. Thunder and Thunderbolt are both good options, but I would recommend Thunder only if you're in rain. Thunderbolt is just the better option. This Pokemon also gets Toxic, which could see some use cases, but not really in VGC. Tri-Attack is pretty good. It will allow you to have a normal type move after Stellar Terrestrializing. Weather Ball is also going to be pretty solid if you're in any weather teams. Yeah, that's a normal Terrapagos' stats are 59 HP, 55 attack, so it's a pretty mixed attack with that 105 special attack. So right now it's a pretty mixed attacker, but you'll see later on why you'd want to only focus on special attacks. It's got some pretty high defenses and pretty decently low speed, so you could run this thing in Trick Room. And then if we go to its Stellar form, which its ability allows it to remove terrain or weather on the field once it enters. It's got 160 HP, it's got 105 attack, which is pretty higher than what it was, but same defenses stats, but now it has 130 special attack and the same speed. So it gets more HP and more speed, which allows this thing to be more HP and more special attack, which allows this thing to be a monster, especially with those moves. And now it's Terra Stellar, which means every type move gets a stab bonus once in a game, but that's okay. That could be the difference between a KO and an RKO. And also your Terra Starstorm now becomes a Stellar type move, which means it cannot be resisted. And it's also super effective against your other opponent's Terra Pokemon. Again, you can't suggest a Terra type because it's only Stellar. Now, number 2 is Miraidon. Miraidon has Hydro Engine, which allows it to increase its special attack while in electric terrain, as well as setting up electric terrain. It's got an Electric Dragon typing, which is a really good offensive typing. It's got some pretty decent stats. It's pretty bulky, while also being really fast and very powerful. I would recommend Terra Electric, Terra Fairy, and Terra Grass as your Terra types on this Pokemon. I would recommend mainly, I think, the highest opportunity for Miraidon to take the win is with Terra Fairy. Terra Fairy, specifically Terra Fairy Dazzling Gleam or Terra Fairy Terra Blast, because that will allow it to kill the other Miraidons. Also, Terra Fairy might actually be really good due to the fact that most people can still throw a Dragon type move on you if you're any of those other Terra types and still do some pretty decent damage, but Terra Fairy will mean you just don't. Dazzling Gleam is a really amazing option for this Pokemon. A lot of people have been running Choice Specs. I would suggest Choice Specs, Life Orb, or actually, yeah, those are probably the only two I'd recommend on this Pokemon. Oh, also Clear Amulet could be pretty solid. And Covert Cloak, always. Dazzling Gleam is really good. Discharge is really good, especially if your Sidemon doesn't care about getting hit by a Discharge or can't. Draco Meteor is probably your strongest Dragon type move and your best option for a Dragon type move. Electro Drift is a really powerful electric type move. I suggest any Miraidon having that. Flash Cannon will allow you to deal with fairy types, so I would suggest that too. Overheat is a good option, as well as Power Gem. Doesn't this thing get... Okay, maybe it doesn't. It also gets Thunderbolt and Thunder, so I guess if you really want to, but not really needed because it's better. Terra Blast is an option. Like I said, if you're Terra Fairy, that could be really solid. Thunder Wave, with how fast it is, actually could be pretty good. Volt Switch is probably the better option over U-Turn because you are a special attacker, so I would recommend that. And that is Miraidon. Now, the restricted that I think has the highest likelihood of winning Worlds is Calyrex Shadow Rider. This is a ghost psychic type Pokemon, which makes it pretty good defensively and offensively typing. Well, not really. Then all as one allows it to still use Unnerve like the Ice Rider, but as well as Grimnay, which is like Chillinay, but gets a special attack bonus instead of the physical attack bonus. I would suggest Terra Dark, Terra Fairy. Terra Fighting might not be a horrible decision either, as far as defensive Terra types. If you're going for offensive, Terra Ghost. So those are the Terra types I would recommend. Then it has some pretty decent HP, decent defense and special defense, low attack, which is always great for a special attacker, and then ridiculously high speed and ridiculous high special attack, which is why I think this thing could win. Why I think this is the most likely candidate for winning Worlds. Astral Barrage is a 120 power special move that hits both opponents, so it's a really solid, strong move. Calm Mind is a great option to be able to increase your special defense as well as your special attack. But there is a better option for increasing things. Dark Pulse could be pretty good against the other opposing Calyrex Shadow Riders. Draining Kiss isn't a horrible move to have on your Shadow Rider due to the fact that it doesn't like fighting, well, due to the fact it doesn't like dark types. Expanding Force, if you put this in Psychic Terrain, could be really deadly. Energy Ball is a pretty okay move if they need grass type coverage. Hex is really good if you have a team that's set up to be able to use that. Lee Storm's not good. Nasty Plot is the move I was talking about. That's a little better than Calm Mind, especially if you're running not a bulky one. If you're trying to just go for damage, Nasty Plot is better because it gives you a +2 in special attack instead of +1. This also gets Pollen Puff. So if you're going for a bulky one, I would suggest that because then it can heal its ally. It also gets Psychic and Psyshock, which are decent moves if you need a Psychic type coverage and you're not in Psychic Terrain. I'd suggest those. But if you're in Psychic Terrain, I would definitely suggest your Expanding Force. Shadow Ball is pretty good if you need a single targeted ghost type move. Stored Power could be pretty solid depending on what type of set you're running. Will-O-Wisp will allow you to use Hex if you need that. If you're gonna go that way. Terra Blast is always good, and Taunt could also see some pretty good use cases. Yeah, so this Pokemon overall is kind of a monster. It also could be just a support Pokemon because it's got things like Haze, Heal Pulse, Helping Hand, Life Dew, Leech Seed, Light Screen. It also gets Rest, Reflect, so it gets both screens, as well as Sleep Talk and Skill Swap. Those could be pretty good. It also gets Substitute, and Trick. These are all great moves. Let's actually look at the usually not used moves and see if there's anything that's here that might be pretty busted. Scary Face could be used. Snarl might actually be pretty good. Actually, Snarl might be better than Dark Pulse. Solar Beam, if you're running a Sun team, might be pretty solid. And this also can set up for crew. Wouldn't recommend, but you could if you need. So yeah, this is why I think that Calyrex Shadow is going to win Worlds. It's just got a lot of moves that can hit really hard. It's got ridiculously higher stats than all of the other restricted we have seen. So I think overall this Pokemon has the highest likelihood, although I think all 10 of these Pokemon have a chance at winning, but I just think that this one has the highest chance. I didn't even talk about items, but this thing loves Clear Amulet. This thing also loves Choice Specs, and it also loves Life Orb, and I could see some use cases for Assault Vest. Assault Vest could be pretty good on this Pokemon, as well as just like basically your Lum Berry or your Citrus Berry, or probably Chesto Berry, depending on what you're worried about. Also, you could also run Weakness Policy on this Pokemon. So yeah, overall, this thing is going to be deadly, and you're definitely going to see it in Worlds. Anyways, that is my predictions. I hope you guys I hope we see some of my predictions coming into play during